awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. Please be seated. It was after midnight on a cool April night, and 5 or 6 of us made our way from the warmth of the campfire we sat around up the hill to the top of the pasture, where we sat to wait for the meteor shower that was supposed to come. It was my senior year of high school, and each weekend in the 5 or 6 weeks leading up to graduation, one night each weekend, a group of friends and I went camping on the farm down below the house that I grew up in. We set up tents, we built fires, we sat around them and talked. We looked back on all of the memories that we had shared over the years of school together and eagerly anticipated what was to come, leaving home in just a couple months' time to go off to college, to begin a new chapter of our lives. On this particular night, we found ourselves on top of the hill, reminiscing like we had so many nights, so many weeks before, trapped in this sort of in-between place, still living within our parents' houses under our parents' roofs, and yet also anticipating the freedoms to come, new opportunities, relationships, a new chapter of our lives. We were there in between the past and the future, nostalgically looking back and eagerly looking ahead. It was in the midst of that kind of push and pull of looking back and looking forward that one of us saw the first star streak across the sky. Look, another one. And soon they came in great numbers, more than we could count. Sometimes 1 or 2 at a time, sometimes 3 or 4, these blazes of light burning across the sky. It was a dark night, and there in the mountains of western North Carolina, without a city, with no city within 100 miles, we could see every pinpoint of light, every streak across the sky. And with each one, our conversation slowed till finally it stopped altogether. No more was there the focus on the past or the anxiety about the future. There was only that present moment, looking up at each pinprick of light streaking across the sky, each meteor burning up in the atmosphere, filling us with wonder, with awe, with a sense that we were there together witnessing something spectacular. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know the day that the Lord is coming. Keep awake. Those are the words that Jesus speaks to the disciples in our gospel reading today. This reading comes in the midst of his last kind of big conversation with them, his last discussion, his last discourse. They're gathered at the Mount of Olives. They have entered into Jerusalem for Jesus' final days. But they don't know that. And Jesus is trying to help them understand what is about to happen, that will go against everything that they thought would unfold, everything they thought they knew about who Jesus was and what he had come to do. These are the final days before he will be tried and crucified and put to death, the final days before he will rise again. Keep awake. Pay attention. You will be the ones charged with bearing witness to how I have come into this world, how I will depart from it, how I will rise again, how God promises life to God's people. Keep awake. And he goes on to raise the stakes of it even higher. There will be 2 in the field, and 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. There will be 2 grinding at the wheel. 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. Your job, he tells them, is to be the ones who stay awake, who pay attention, who are able to see and bear witness to these things, ones who are able to identify and to know how God is present in and through this world, how God is present in and through me. Keep awake. Today is the first Sunday of Advent. It's a season in which we prepare for the coming of Christ. That is what the word Advent means, a coming. And I think on its surface, it's easy to think, oh yeah, Advent are the weeks that lead up to Christmas. Christmas is the day that we celebrate the birth of Christ. You know, you've got the manger, the donkeys, all of the stuff. But as we see in our reading today, which I don't think of as a very Advent-y reading, there's no cuteness to it. I feel like Advent should be more cute. But we get this apocalyptic reading to remind us that Advent is about so much more. In the 12th century, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux took up this one musings on what the season of Advent was. And this is what he came up with. When we talk about Advent, we're actually talking about 3 Advents, 3 comings of Christ. And that is what we celebrate, what we look towards in this season. The first Advent was the Advent that for us happened some 2,000 years ago. It was the coming of Christ into this world in the form of an infant born in a manger. It was that moment in which God took on human flesh and form, who suffered as one of us, who died as one of us, so that we might be raised and drawn closer into relationship and communion with God. The second Advent is the daily Advent we experience over the course of our lives. Moments like the one that Phil described in his stewardship talk last Sunday. Moments in which we feel the nearness of God suddenly come over us. Moments in which we become aware of God's presence in the depths of our hearts and souls, in other people around us, or in the world outside of us. His second Advent are moments like that feeling of God's warmth and presence within us. Those moments of encountering God's love through a family member or a friend or through a chance encounter with a stranger on the streets. Or through that sudden awareness of God's presence while on a walk in the woods, while looking out at a sunset, or in the silence of a forest covered in freshly fallen snow. The second Advent is those ways that God's presence, that our awareness of God suddenly washes over us. The third Advent is the one that we hear about most explicitly in our reading today. The coming of Christ that we look for and long for and hope. That moment that Christ will return to complete the work that God initiated in creation and that was renewed in and through Christ's coming in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago, through his death and through his resurrection. It is a hope for that day that Isaiah describes, in which swords will be beaten into plowshares, in which they will study war no more, but there will be peace in all the world, in which God's love will reach the fullness of its reign, and there will be no distance between us and the love of God. All 3 of those Advents are wrapped up into this season. And they're also wrapped up into what Jesus tells the disciples today. Keep awake. Pay attention. The signs are all around you. It is only through your attention, paying attention to the way that God is at work in the world, that the full meaning of each of those Advents can be revealed. It is only through paying attention that we can come to know fully what the meaning of that first Advent is for us. It is only through paying attention, through being awake to God's work at the world, that we can sense his presence within us and all around us. And it is only by keeping awake that we will be ready for that day when the fullness of Christ's love for the world is revealed. Keep awake. keep awake. That work of wakefulness is something that we are called to do, especially in this season of Advent, a season when there are so many demands on our time and attention, which we can find ourselves pulled in all different directions. I think this season, more than others, it's easy to get caught in the past, to look back at Christmases past, at those traditions and things that we may have experienced long ago or that we're missing this year. It may be easy to get caught up on who is not present or what feels like it is missing. Or on the other hand, it's a season when it's easy to jump ahead, to look ahead to what I need to do tomorrow or the next day, when the presents that I ordered for these folks are going to get here, when I'm going to pick up the tree, when I need to do the wrapping, when I need to do the baking. It's easy to feel that anxiety over what is to come and lose sight of the present moment. What Jesus is doing in our reading today is calling the disciples to be present, to be in the moment that they are living through, to not get caught up in their nostalgia for Jesus' time with them that came before, or to be ready just to jump ahead to when he might come again, but to bear witness to what's happening here and now, the ways that that God's saving work is unfolding all around them. Keep awake. That work of wakefulness is borne out through the way that we live our lives. It is through our intentional engagement with the present moment. And that can take a number of different forms. Maybe it's that long walk in the woods that you desperately needed to just ground yourselves in creation and a sense of God's abundant grace. Or maybe it's lighting a candle and spending moments in silence, attentive to God, attentive to God's presence within you, attentive to the movements of your own mind and spirit. It can take the form of intentional prayer, meditation, the spiritual practices which nourish you and which help open you up to noticing where God is at work within you or all around you. Or it can look like taking time to serve others. Maybe that's volunteering at the Cornucopia Food Pantry or at St. Thomas More, or giving to someone else in another way. Each of these practices can be a way of grounding yourselves in this moment, in the present, in the here and now. And it can help open us up to noticing where God is at work in the world. And so in this season in which those pressures of having more cookies to bake or presents to wrap or a tree to decorate or people to call or just more stuff to attend to, in the midst of all of that, I hope that in this Advent season, in this holy and sacred time, we may also be able to take those moments, to carve out that time to pay attention to the movement of God's Spirit within us and around us. That is what lies at the heart of this season. Keep awake, therefore. Keep awake. Open yourselves up to each of those Advents. That deepening awareness of Christ coming 2,000 years ago in Bethlehem. That deepening awareness of how God is being revealed within us and among us here today. And to look with hope for God's coming again. To bring to fulfillment that promise of the transformation of this world in and through the love of God. Keep awake, therefore. Advent is here. Amen.